he said I have the mic, so I guess that means I go first. Well, my advice is to take care of the people that you have working for you already. I think that's probably the thing that has helped our family business. We've been in business for 77 years here in San Antonio. We have close to 600 team members, and probably about 35% of those have been with our company for over 20 years. And so my advice really is take care of the people you do have. They're your greatest source of referrals for future employees because they understand your business. They're already working. They understand your volumes, the uniqueness that each one of our restaurants has. And so that would be my best advice.
Okay. What we do is we help restaurants with their recruiting strategy, and kind of to tie this into your question is, you need to look at what you're doing currently, evaluate it, maybe put yourself through the apply process, make sure it's easy, quick, simple. Think about innovative ways, possibly utilizing text to apply. So there's a lot of new things that you can explore. Look at what your competition's doing. Those are just a couple things, and I think we're going to kind of expand on some other fresh ideas. And one thing that's going to be coming down the pipe for members is a TRA job board. So we'll get into that a little bit more too. So that's one other tool.
Good morning. I wholeheartedly agree with what Pete said. I think the number one thing you have to do is to look after the people you have, because if you're just hiring new people every day and losing them 6 days later, it doesn't help you. That said, there's always a need to get great people in the door. And I work for a company called Seasoned, where we are trying to make that easy, to the point that Brian made. We are building a platform for restaurant workers, exclusively for restaurant workers, a platform that they can use to improve their lives and livelihoods, whether it be through free training, connecting with people that can give them advice, asking questions in a non-threatening environment, finding jobs, and soon more things. We believe that transparency between the restaurant that's trying to hire you and you yourself is the best way to find people that are a good match. I don't know if you know this, but Walmart loses 12% of its people on the first day because they walk into Walmart and they had no idea that they had to clean the floors. And so it's all about transparency. We're trying to use technology to make that easier and to be able to drive the right understanding so that the likelihood of success when you take a job is higher. It's just one of the ways.
So I guess the recruiter on the panel has the golden bullet for you?
Magic bullet.
Magic bullet. Okay. I don't have one, but keeping your people is important, but that doesn't help you find people. And that's kind of the question here, is how do you find people in a shrinking market? So if you can keep your people, that's great. You can use referrals, and referrals is one way. But if my experience is going to be with volume, high volume, low budget recruiting. So if you have high volume turnover, industry average is about 105% on the hourly. So if you're lower than that, you're doing great. So to try to simplify this, first of all, put your recruiting strategy around your need. So I have 3 different strategies in my team, one for corporate positions, one for management positions, and one for hourly positions. So if you're recruiting hourly, I go to that strategy. So I've been doing this for about 15 years in the restaurant industry. Used to be on paper, in paper. Papers don't work anymore, so now everything's online. So you need to know, first of all, your candidate's behavior. Each geography is going to be different. But I can tell you from statistical data that I have that 70% of your candidates now are going to be using a mobile device, whether they be managers or hourly, and it's even a little higher for your hourly because a lot of them don't have home internets, so they're using a mobile device to search for their jobs. So you need to find a mobile platform that is going to be out there to source your candidates and post your jobs on and have your jobs get known for, or get known by the candidates. So used to be Monster. Everybody heard of Monster? Had the little Monster guy on TV, kind of passe now. Career Builder did the Super Bowl thing, had the monkey stuff on TV, kind of passe now. So you have to keep up with technology and find out what's going on. My experience right now, and I'll give you an example of volume, we just sourced 300 people from an hourly perspective for 2 separate hiring events, one in Sacramento and one in LA. And we did that in 1 week, sourced 300 people. So we know our resource, how our candidates going to behave in those 2 markets. But again, knowing they're all 70% on mobile. So Indeed is probably your most effective process right now. Indeed has a little tool that they use. Part of their business plan is they have Indeed Apply, which is similar to your Amazon one-click. So candidates now on Indeed can one-click apply for your job. So if I get any Indeed people out here, you're welcome. But that is the primary source. Our Indeed one-click apply, we have an applicant tracking system. If you're big enough to have an applicant tracking system, they should integrate with Indeed so the one-click works. I would say probably 95% of our applies are coming through the Indeed one-click apply. So from a strategic standpoint on what's going to be important for you is speed to the candidate. When a candidate applies, you need to be responding to that candidate within 24 hours or they're moving on, or somebody like me will, and I'll get a hold of them before you do. So speed to the candidate is probably the biggest thing I can tell you that's going to make you successful. And that goes to the operator as well. If you have a recruiting team supplying you the candidates, I'm the Simon Cowell of our company. I'll give you the candidate and put them on stage for you, but you pick them. So for the hiring managers that have that type of process, speed to the candidate is going to be important. Follow up with the candidate is going to be important. So we use a scheduling tool when we schedule for these events. Our scheduling tool will follow up with that candidate 3 times before the event, once 72 hours out, once 24 hours out, and once 3 hours out. So that candidate got 3 contacts from us when they scheduled themselves for our hiring event. So we're telling the candidate, we want you to come. Those are the things that I think they say it's a shrinking labor pool, and it is because our business and industry is growing. But the unemployment rate, don't let it scare you. If you break it down by geography, if you talk to an economist and break it down, it will depend on where you are and what you have to offer as to what your unemployment rate is. But either way, a cook is frustrated in a kitchen that's hot, and guess what they'll leave? They'll leave a hot kitchen, busy kitchen for another hot, busy kitchen. So if you're the one out there talking to them, I'm going to get them out of one kitchen and put them in my kitchen. So I told you, never give me a mic.
Well, okay, pass it back down. So I kind of want to build on that a little bit because we kind of touched on quite a few things as we went down the line. But one of the big things I heard is technology, job boards, access to application processes. And as our workforce is changing and as the millennials or the whomever's next is coming up into this, they don't have computers. They're functioning mostly on tablets. How do you market? You hired 300 in 2 sessions. How do you and others recommend that we as an industry begin marketing to these incoming candidates to get them into our restaurants? Because ultimately, on paper, a restaurant is a restaurant. It's a hot, busy kitchen. It's a hot, busy kitchen. But why is your hot, busy kitchen better to the shrinking labor pool than my hot, busy kitchen?
So that's going to happen after I get a hold of the candidate,
Okay.
right? So the first thing I got to do is get them to apply. So again, I don't want to be up here selling Indeed, but these job aggregator boards have job alerts for candidates. So once they've applied for, it's a little bit like technology, unlike this technology. The Google technology knows your habits, so does Indeed. It knows the candidate's habits. So when a job is posting on Indeed where a candidate might have applied in San Antonio for a cook job 2 days ago, they got an email alert that says, hey, there's another San Antonio cook job for you. So that constantly gets in their face. But to answer your question, why is my restaurant better than your restaurant, happens after I get the candidate, and that comes into the marketing piece of your business. One thing I wanted to say before I hand it to you, Madhav, is I forgot social media. So if you're in a small company, if you don't have a Facebook page for your restaurant, get one. And then hook Instagram with it. Take pictures of your food and your restaurant and so forth and connect those two. Social media is huge. And so if you're a small company, like Pete probably using social media is a good source. Social media is really huge.
I absolutely agree that some of this happens after the candidate comes, but a lot of it can happen before. I talked about transparency. People want to know where they work. They want to know whom they work for, want to know that their friends can work there as well. And those are the kind of things that you have to be able to tell them, right? We've heard so many times that someone's quitting a job because their manager left. Well, how about the reverse side of that is they want to take a job because they want to go someplace where there's someone good. So finding a way to tell them, and Indeed does not do this, finding a way to tell them who works there, how good they are, why you should work with them, and all those kind of things, right? So to me, it's about putting your best foot forward. What benefits do you have? Today we were talking to somebody from the Frontier Restaurant Group here, and they have an amazing profile of the benefits they offer. They have an amazing profile of what the career path could be for you to get more money. All of this stuff should be made available to the prospective candidate before, so that you can tell them that, yeah, my kitchen itself may be as hot as the next guy's, but the benefits you get from working in my kitchen are far better than the other guys, right? So it's about putting your best foot forward right up front as you're trying to attract people.
Okay, so, go ahead. Go ahead.
So it's what you're asking is kind of like the top of the funnel. Where do these people start to kind of be alerted about your opportunities? And so that starts with like what Jim said. There's advertising, Monster, Career Builder, Indeed, ZipRecruiter, Glassdoor, Snag a Job. I mean, the list goes on. Social, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat. You guys can start doing stuff on Snapchat. But the thing is when you put that communication piece out there, what story are you telling? It's become more. You guys are now marketers. Beyond getting people to come eat at your restaurant, you're trying to create that employment brand. What's the cause, or what else are y'all doing within your community, giving back? And so within your recruitment marketing strategy, you can kind of put a little bit about what you guys are doing for the local food bank, or some of those different things. And those things, kind of to touch on what you said here, can be put on your company website. And so that way candidates can discover you and see about working for you, and or like Jim said, they might go to your company Facebook page and see that you guys are doing things and kind of seeing this looks like a fun place to work. And then also make sure you go and look at Glassdoor, Indeed. They have an area where you can claim your company profile, and with that you can kind of control that narrative. You want to make sure that you are saying what you want to be heard, because on those profiles, people that used to work for you might be saying negative things. So you want to squelch that, make sure that you're articulating, that you guys are a great company to work for. So those are some other things to build on that top of the funnel to kind of get that right story out to come work for you guys.
So I'm going to bring it down to inside the funnel, to use your metaphor. And this is actually directed at you, Pete. How are you identifying potential leaders within your existing team? Do you have a plan for these players? And how do you provide them a growth plan within your restaurant?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the way we try to approach it is just the way we market ourselves to the community in terms of trying to get customers into the restaurant. We're having to do the same thing with potential employees in terms of attracting them to our culture. And so we talk a lot about that. For us, we have what we refer to as our company Bible, our mission statement, our values, our principles, how we do things. I think nowadays people want to be part of something, and it's not just about the job. Like I said, there's a lot of hot kitchens out there, but what makes your company different from the next person? And so absolutely, we try to do our best to identify talent when we see it, and to get to it very quickly. And that's becoming a little bit more of a challenge nowadays, but almost everybody in our restaurant that's in a management position over time has started from somewhere at an entry-level position and worked their way up to the top. And I think, again, we do all of the things that everybody up here is suggesting in terms of, using applicant tracking systems, having career pages, social media, hiring events, and all of those sorts of things. But the way we like to do it is identify the people that are already working for us and choose those people to be leaders in our company.
Do you have a specific growth plan once you put them on that, or do you have standard training that goes along with certain positions at this point?
Sure. Yeah, so both. I mean, we obviously training plans for every position and certified training positions throughout the company and then different tracks. And so people can, depending on where they start in the organization, they can find their way up. I mean, our director of training who's sitting over here started off in our restaurant as a busboy working as a teenager, worked his way up into a managed position, went to school, got a college degree, and gotten all the requisite training to become a director of training. And so that's just the way we've tried to build our company.
That's excellent. Anybody?
You know, what Pete didn't tell you is that the turnover in his company is 28% year to date and will probably end at 50% for the full year, right? So he's not bragging enough. But the point is that that's how he's solving the crushing need to hire more people, is by keeping them, right? And I think one of the things that this is not meant to be judgmental, but one of the things that's a fact is that this industry matured to a large extent in the 70s and the 80s when the labor situation was extremely different. And we had a lot more kids that were working in the restaurant industry. We had a lot more summer students that were coming in there. And so some people are still using the techniques that were used then. And the rest of the world, other industries are competing much more ferociously for people. And I think that's the lesson that Pete's company has learned, is that you have to compete ferociously for people. That doesn't necessarily mean paying them more always, right? It can't, because otherwise he'd be out of business. What it means is understanding their need, making sure that they feel appreciated, making sure they feel known. Otherwise you don't work for someplace 20 years, right?
Go ahead.
Just one quick follow-up to that. I think the other thing is employing technology in the restaurant and throughout the restaurant. I mean, obviously we're a very labor-intensive business, but I remember post 9/11 there was a great article in Business Week that talked about the history of recessions in our country, and what they discovered was that over the period of years, that the length of recessions got shorter, and the time between recessions got longer, because businesses in America begin to employ technology in their companies to become more efficient. So in our world, a lot of what we're doing now is employing technology through our commissary and other types of equipment that can do the work faster than anybody that we could possibly hire to do it. These are machines that show up 365 days of the year. They never miss a day of work. And they can do the work much more efficiently. And so that's one of the things, obviously, I think we're trying to do to combat the shortages that are out there as well.
So I'm going to kind of take it back to that branding aspect. How important is it for you, but for all of our companies and restaurants, to incorporate our employment brand and company culture into the recruitment initiatives?
We work with some big chains, and one of them's Raising Cane's, and they're all about, chicken tenders. But what they do is they're just, that does just cascade down all the way to, the fry cook. And everybody on their business card says fry cook. So I mean, again, it's just look at your brand, look at what's unique about it, and let your staff kind of embrace that. Those are some of the things that we're seeing some folks doing out there with respect to kind of taking that employment brand all the way throughout the whole system.
I think that's a great question, because if you think about what the millennial generation or my kids who are in that generation care about, it's much more than a job. I mean, when my dad was working, he was wake up at 8, go to the place, come back at 7 every day, and doing what the man said, right? My kids are not that way. They question what's being done. They question the decisions being made. They care about what's happening outside the job function. What do you stand for as a company? How do you help the community? What's important to you? How do you treat your customers? Right? These things matter. Yesterday we were at a restaurant, which shall go nameless, but the burrata was fantastic. But sitting at the bar, we were embarrassed at how the manager was treating his employees. Literally, we were embarrassed. We wanted to walk out of there because of that reason, right? But I think it's really important to not just position your brand, but to build the right brand.
Did you want to give it to me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Anybody heard of SSP America? Raise your hand. 2 people in this, 3 people. Now you have.
Okay.
Did you
yeah.
before?
No.
Guy from Las Palapas. How long have you worked for Las Palapas? You never heard of us? We used to run Las Palapas in the San Antonio airport. Which we used to do. So branding is huge. We don't have a brand. So nobody knows us. So if you don't have a brand, you resort to other methods. But I can tell you that branding is huge. I'm at a disadvantage because of our brand is not known. So if you have a brand, you can't change it. So resort to the other methods that I kind of advised you to. Again, I'm high volume, so I'm recruiting high volume. I don't have the luxury of Pete having 0 turnover on management. So kudos to the leadership of you and your team, Pete. If you've got turnover, that's leadership. So
hold on to that for a sec. So
Uh-oh.
you mentioned the other methods that you had talked about previously. So this question is sort of based on that. What efficiencies have you implemented to improve the overall hiring process and get candidates through the process and onboard quickly? You mentioned they're getting touched 3 times or communicated with 3 times in the first day.
Yep.
Is that at different levels within your organization? And how does that transfer to an independent restaurant, even a small chain of 2 or 3 who are wearing all those hats to be able to respond as quickly to have the same success level that you have?
Yeah, so with respect to efficiencies, if you're hiring, 1 person a month or you're in a small outlet, then speed to your candidate is my best advice once you get the candidate. Using your social media is the best way to get your candidate. None of those cost anything. That doesn't cost any money, just your time. So with respect to volume, I'm a data junkie. I'm probably one of the few HR people that loves analytics. So I have, and I don't know if the slide is here, I have 2 years worth of data, and I'm talking hourly recruiting now. It's okay if it's not here. It's not, I don't see it there in the deck.
Sorry.
Okay, so I have 2 years worth of data from every position, from server, cook, bartender, food service worker, counter help, whatever you want to call that person, on down to all of our positions. And I track starting with the candidate applying and scheduling themselves. Then I track if they showed up for the interview. Then I track if they got hired. And so using regression analysis, I don't want to take too long explaining that, just you can Google that. Using regression analysis, my recruiter knows how many people they have to at least get to apply, and of those that applied, how many have to actually say that they're going to sign up for an interview. And then going back, using all that regression analysis, we know exactly how many people we have to put in front of the hiring manager for each of our positions. So all that is done without a verbal contact from the recruiter. It's all done through technology. So most people, when they're looking for a job, again, speed to the candidate. If they get a reply quickly, it's important to them. They don't care about talking to a recruiter at that point. They don't really care. They just want to get in front of somebody, and how quickly you can get in front of them is going to be your efficiencies. So we use a scheduling tool, which is pretty, so it's like the big buzzword now, artificial intelligence. That's taken place of the recruiter getting on the phone. We have a template that we use that we send them, and the scheduling tool will contact them by email and by text. That's important, by the way, texting them. They don't want to talk to you. It's all technology now, and it's all based on mobile devices. And so this is getting them to you. Once you get to them, then obviously it becomes the interviewing process at that point. So.
Yeah.
I think I agree with the fact that speed to the employee or the candidate is a very important thing, because again, think of it, right? They probably applied to 5 jobs in this market, and if you don't get back to them for 3 days, then they've probably talked to someone else. So that part's really straightforward. But I think the other thing that's part of it is also the fact that don't treat the process like a black box. Give them feedback. Tell them what's happening. Build a relationship even in this in these small steps, right? Getting back to them soon, that you're going to be getting back to them again, tells them that you care, and they know where they stand. So it's not just the practical nature of saying, okay, I don't want to lose you, but the strategic argument of saying, hey, I care about you. And that's really important to people as well. And scheduling, we talk to people. One of the companies I admire a lot in Austin is Rudy's. They've done a really great job with almost everything that they've touched. And one of the things they told me was that they're really frustrated by the fact that the telephone game of scheduling costs them a lot of time, right? It's back and forth. And so scheduling tools are extremely important. And Seasoned, we have one where you just get a link, and when you open it, you get an updated calendar. If somebody else has taken the slot, it's no longer available to you, and everything works seamlessly from there onwards, right? To the point that was made earlier, messaging. Did you know that at Papa John's, you can't use your own personal phone to message a candidate, right? Company policy, they want to keep track of what's happening. Our little application lets you message phones right from the application on the website. So you can reach out to people. It's much easier for them. They don't have to be home. They don't have to be listening messages. It works much better, right?
And to piggyback on this, it still goes back to where do they get into that funnel? And so with that, you need to have, whether it's a unique keyword for your brand, so they can kind of text to start getting into that process. So there's different texting tools out there that you could buy a unique keyword. Then you start adding that into your recruitment marketing strategy. And then that way you can kind of get those folks to opt in to where you can kind of start doing these scheduling pieces of the puzzle. So those are other components of it.
So here's a fun question, I think, and this is for you all to discuss, but please reflect amongst yourselves as well. Have you ever tried your company's application process? And is it candidate friendly? And does it make it easy for potential applicants to apply? And again, this comes back to you keep saying Indeed, but there's the Zip Apply, I think, on ZipRecruiter, right? If there's anybody from ZipRecruiter here, you're welcome. But in those instances, being able to get to them, have you done this, and is it easy?
Yes and sort of. Going through the application process and using an applicant tracking system, a lot of times you want the image, and we were talking about that, about your brand that you may have on your websites. And then you go to the applicant tracking system, which is like a third-party software. You have a really difficult sometimes trying to sell your brand the same way. Going through it, trying to make it a lot easier, I agree, is very important. Speed to the candidate is critical. A lot of times what we're doing now in hiring events, and I was sharing with them that we've kind of raised the bar several years ago for ourselves in an environment where now we're pre-employment drug testing, we're background checking, because we really want to know the people who are working for us. And sometimes that can shrink the talent pool that's out there, but we've gotten to the point now when we're doing hiring events, we can do all of those things at the event, right then on the spot, and complete the whole circle from interview all to getting them on board immediately.
Excellent.
To touch on that apply process, yes, put yourself in your candidate's shoes. Try to apply to one of your jobs. Go ahead and do a screenshot and just see how many steps it takes. Put out a stopwatch, time it, see how long it takes. So those are going to really kind of let you realize, and do it from your phone and do it from your desktop. So you can kind of see this is something that's hindering your candidate to get through your apply process. And then if it's a pain, then your candidates are dropping off, and you're wondering why you're spending on advertising, but yet you're not getting applicants to the bottom line. So that's definitely something you need to look at. You need to look at a mobile-friendly apply process. There's different ways that you guys can do that with applicant tracking systems or short forms on your website or other third-party tools that can maybe help get that candidate into the pipeline more effectively.
I think the proof is in the pudding, right? So one of our big customers is Mellow Mushroom, 210 stores. They use Seasoned. We've been doing a study with them, working with them closely, and we tracked that for their jobs that were listed on our property, 21,000 people saw the job, saw any one of the jobs, 15,000 applied. So I'm confident that our application process is really easy. That's the best way to know, right?
Good question, Allison. Part of the strategy, make it simple and easy. You can always put your application after you decide that you want to hire that person. Make them jump through hoops. Every gate you make them jump, you'll lose people through those gates. So even on, which I'm glad you brought up, I don't know why this is cutting out on me. ZipRecruiter will allow you to put a couple of questions in, which is very cool. So Indeed won't let you. But no more than 5. Once you hit 5, there's again, I'm a data junkie. There's data that show you after 5 questions or after 5 clicks, your drop-off rate is huge. It's like 70%. So get them to you, then put your application on the other end. Now, some companies like ours that are publicly traded, they struggle with that. So it comes down to the definition of what's a candidate and what's an applicant, and where you put them in that process. And even the government struggles with that term, if any of you have OFCCP rules. So when does a person become a candidate and when do they become an applicant? But if your application is lengthy and it's in your ATS and it's out there on your site and they have to go through all those hoops, you're losing a ton of folks. And I'm going to get them because I'm quicker. Yep. Yeah. Yeah, so for my corporate positions, I'll make them jump through hoops because it's a little test. How bad do you want the job? You're talking professional level type people, your accounting managers or financial analysts and those type of folks, HR people and so forth. So your restaurant managers, I'll make that as easy as the hourly associates because I want to get them just as quick. Again, we're a volume. I'm opening 85 restaurants a year, so I need managers, so I make that quick as well. So when it comes to the official company application, I put that at the hire process. Same with your backgrounds and no such, because technically you shouldn't run a background until you've offered somebody a position anyways. But, yeah, good?
So how has your company culture, and you talked about putting them through the ringer a bit for the higher level
For your professional
positions.
Yeah.
How has your company culture helped employee referrals? Because if you're putting certain levels of staff through these hoops and you're getting them ingrained into your culture, how has your culture helped with the employee referrals, and what do you do to promote employee referrals as part of that sort of marketing tool through the culture, through access to the shrinking labor pool?
Yeah, so keep in mind, I'm a recruiter, so I'm the one sourcing the folks from outside, but referral programs and company culture are huge, especially when you get to the professional level. Those folks will go on Glassdoor and they'll research you and they'll look you out, whereas seek you out and see what your culture's like. And I get asked that a lot, what's your company culture like? And it's a little bit like, recruiting for the Air Force that I did for 18 years. What's basic training like? You got to go and see. But, the company culture is huge. So referral programs. So I've had operators tell me, well, I don't want their buddy working because then I've got a little clique going on. So, referrals are cheap. They don't cost you anything unless you're paying a referral bonus to the person to come join you. But
let's piggyback on that. Why don't they want their buddy? Like, what are they afraid of?
Well, I'm not an operator, so it might be a...
Sure.
See, I got one of... Yeah, he's right.
Well, no, actually, I think I'm going to go the other direction. So actually, we do encourage, we refer to ourselves as a family-owned and operated business, but that's not just because my family owns the company. A lot of the employees that we have throughout our company are related to each other. Husbands and wives, fathers and sons, daughters, cousins, brothers and sisters. And, my grandfather started that back in 1941 when he started the company, and we continue to encourage it. And there's obviously going to be some times where you get into some tough situations, and we've had deaths in a family, for example, and all of a sudden you're losing 2 or 3 employees at one time. But we have found that we think that the benefit far outweighs the risk of that, so we continue to encourage it. But to your other question in terms of culture, we did something a few years ago, and we're a very small company, but we did a team member engagement survey, and we kind of modeled it a lot after Gallup's Q12. And it's one of those things when you do something like that, I got to be honest with you, I'm the one that wanted to do it, but I was scared to death because I thought we were going to get good results, but you just never know what somebody's going to say. Very fortunately for us, I mean, all of the engagement came back very, very, very high. And there's very specific questions in the Q12. And, but the highest scores that we received were our own team members saying how much they loved working for our company, and the fact that they had a best friend at work, and that they would recommend another family member or a friend to our company. So, because of that, I mean, we do encourage our team members to refer people to us. We do pay higher bonuses or referral bonuses. We're actually sometimes, depending on certain positions, we were talking, Jim and I, about some of our more difficult positions to fill. For right now, for us, for whatever reason, servers are hard to get, quality servers. And in our restaurants, our servers can make upwards of $35,000, $40,000, $50,000, which I think is better than most restaurants in the San Antonio market. But being downtown, and there's parking issues and different things that maybe make it a bit of a barrier to work for us sometimes. But we're open 24 hours a day, 365 days of the year. We work every holiday. Those are our busiest days. And so, there's a lot of restaurants who close. And so sometimes people want to make those kind of choices. But, we also pay higher end bonuses too sometimes. And when we're promoting management from within the team up, a lot of times we'll pay sort of signing bonuses, if you will, for somebody taking a jump in position, to really encourage them to do that.
Excellent. Yeah. And then we'll take if there's anybody that has a question out there.
So I think the statistics again speak for themselves, right? If you look at the national average, and Jim's business may be an exception to that because of the very specific nature of where they are, but something like 8 to 9% of the applicants are referrals, and about 40% of the hires are referrals, right? So clearly the statistics are saying that the restaurant in general likes that, right? Much to your point. I think the other point to be made there is that referrals are not an easy thing to manage, right? Because when you get a referral and you have high turnover, how do you track when they came? Usually there's a stipulation that the person recommending and the person coming both have to be there for a certain amount of time. All that stuff makes tracking difficult. On top of it, there's a payment process that sometimes happens, and how do you deal with that in payroll, and do you gross it up, do you not gross it up? All those conversations happen, right? So as we set out getting season going, and our booth is right there, we'd love for you to stop by. One of the things we heard from people was, help me with the referral process. This was, we thought we knew the industry and we knew it was a difficult problem, but people really want a very simple solution, which is, let me email all my friends and just track for me who recommended whom, so that 6 months down the road, I at least know that it was Jim who recommended this person or Pete recommended the other person, right? So I think referrals are a great way to go. It removes the asymmetry of information, because if you trust someone in your building and he says that I vouch for them, there's a peer pressure that comes on, right? I'm going to let my brother down or my brother-in-law down, right? And I think more often than not, that's a good thing.
So I know we're talking kind of internal referrals, but how many of you guys are familiar with the TRAEF? Raise your hand if you're familiar with the TRAEF. High and proud,
raise
right?
Your hand.
Okay, so what the TRAEF is a resource to you folks, and they have a referral system, and it's over 20,000 students that are culinary students. And so this is one thing that I'm on a board of, so I think it's okay to toot the TRAEF's horn here. And so what we're trying to do is create that pathway to get these students to learn that you guys have jobs and opportunities. So again, those are things that you can talk to the folks with, if you see with a TRA lapel pin, again, that's why the TRA is building a job board that they're going to be promoting to all of these students to go and see what jobs the TRA's members and allied partners can promote to these kids. So think of that as one more referral way of getting in tap with these students. I think that was a good plug for
Yeah,
TRA.
great plug. Any questions, anybody? Yes, ma'am. I'll repeat it. Yeah.
Do you want me to repeat it?
Sure.
Okay.
Sorry.
Sorry. So you mentioned Indeed, and we used that for a little bit, and then we quit using it because we felt like the quality of team members we were getting wasn't what we were used to. And I was wondering if there was a different way you used it that maybe we didn't, to kind of, like you said, we want to get them very quickly, but we also want to kind of weed out ones that aren't great for our company.
And Kendall, who are you with?
I'm with Gringo's Mexican Kitchen.
Thank you.
So the first question I have for you is, who did you use before Indeed that you were having success with? I'm sorry?
Talent Reef.
Yeah, we use.
Oh, Talent Reef. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Why didn't you continue using that then?
We're still using it as a platform.
Okay.
But we were using that as an addition
Talent Reef
to
is
it.
your ATS?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, so you're going to get trash, SEO, search engine optimization. So how you post your job, what title you're using, and the keywords that you have in your job description. A lot of people post job descriptions. You know how boring a job description, I'm in HR, so I can say this, right? They are boring. Nobody wants to read that crap. People only read about the first 5 lines anyway, so you got to catch their attention. But it could be how you're posting your job in the job titles and the location. It depends on where you're at. So from a geography standpoint, you have to test the market and see what works. Because I asked if I could do this on the call, I would try ZipRecruiter
Okay.
and see what you're getting from ZipRecruiter. Are you using sponsored Indeed, by the way?
Is that what we were using? Yes.
Okay. And what do you put? Did you adjust your time? So for those who don't know, sponsored Indeed, it's what I love about it. You control your own budget. So you can say, I want to advertise this job for $20 a day, and I only want to run it 3 days. And so $60 it costs you to get your candidates. So have you adjusted your time slots or your dollar amounts and still getting the similar results?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So Indeed might not be working in your geography, or it could be how you're titling your job. Or I would try ZipRecruiter is the next hottest thing that's coming up. We have Google Analytics coming out there. Google Jobs is starting, but I don't think they're up and running yet. I haven't seen any success from them. But I'm on top of all the technology, and those are the 2 that I would recommend right now.
Okay.
To help you?
Thank you.
Hold on. I think Brian has something.
Brian's got a final thought for you.
Yeah. So you kind of what you can do is kind of like you call it A/B testing. So go back to just doing some sponsored again, going right to your apply link within your applicant tracking system on your Talent Reef system. Or then just go ahead and have them do that quick apply, just to an email, and just kind of evaluate your results that way. Jim is spot on with respect to the job title. But 2 things is you're hearing on the radio and wherever, Indeed and ZipRecruiter are doing tons of advertising. ZipRecruiter's, really tied into the NCAA. You're going to be hearing them start advertising again during college football season and things like that. So they're doing a lot of the different advertising. And just so you know, Google is getting into the sandbox too. And so what Google has done is created Google Jobs. You go on your phone, type in restaurant manager in whatever city you're in. No more is Indeed or Career Builder or Monster are going to be on the top. Google's taking that top section of that search result. So you want to try to start seeing if wherever you're posting on Indeed, Google and Indeed aren't in a relationship together. Google, Career Builder, ZipRecruiter, they are. So you want to make sure your jobs are also getting on that Google job search. And so that's why, putting an ad on ZipRecruiter to try to get a little different talent pool, different bucket might be another option for you.
Brian mentioned an important part. Are you having them go through your ATS from Indeed?
Yes, we are.
Yeah, so you're having a drop-off rate huge right there.
Yeah.
And you can go in Indeed and see if you're sponsoring. You can go in and get your candidates. You know that, right? Okay. All right. So you're having if you have them apply and go into your ATS, you're having a huge drop-off. So if you have an ATS that integrated with Indeed, and I can tell you HireBridge is one that does great hourly integration. The quick apply on Indeed is like buying on Amazon. One click, boom, they're in. They're in your ATS.
Jim, Jack is here to take the microphone.
Ladies and gentlemen, I hope that every one of your employee questions and recruiting questions have been answered here today. But if they haven't, our panel will be here for a few minutes and you can ask them. Let's give them one final big applause.